Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Switch 'em Up Saturdays right here on the Hollywood Critics Association YouTube channel, Twitch channel, YouTube page, Facebook page, every single page that you could find. I, of course, am Scott Menzel. I am the founder of this organization, and we were supposed to have a four-person show. Don't know where the one person is, but we have two other wonderful members of the organization. We have Shannon McGrew is joining us today.
Hey guys.
And we have Alexander Robinson, the
Hey.
real Mr. Robinson.
That's right.
Welcome back, Shannon.
Thank you.
Alexander, welcome to the new format, even though you were on the old format.
I was, but glad to be here regardless.
Okay, awesome. So real quick, let's just go around and kind of do brief introductions as to where you could find where everyone could find you and everything like that, and then we'll move into the three topics, starting with Shannon.
You can find me on Instagram at Horror Design Chick or on Twitter at Shannon_McGrew.
Okay, awesome. And how about for you, Alexander?
You can find me on YouTube, The Real Mr. Robinson, Twitter at Real Mr._Robinson, and Instagram, The Real Mr. Robinson.
Awesome. All right. And just for those who don't know me, you can find me Twitter and Instagram at The Other Scott M, and then also on my YouTube channel when I do a few videos there every once in a while, The Other Scott M. So today we're going to do something a little bit differently. We normally do a TV show, a special topic, and a movie. We're actually going to do a special topic, unlike any special topic we've done before, which is talking about the future of Hollywood right after COVID-19, or basically how long this is going to last, how everything is going to have to change or has changed. So we're going to get into a very open-minded discussion about that. No one here, we're all just basically throwing our ideas out there. We don't know what's going to happen, but we just kind of want to give our own perspective on this and talk about it, since everyone's been talking about it for the last couple of weeks. But before we do that, we're going to start off with a brand new movie that came out on Netflix this week. It's called The Half of It, and it is written and directed by Alice Wu. This movie was actually recommended by Janelle Riley over at Variety. So special shout out to her for recommending this film. And I want to start with Alexander. What are your initial thoughts on this?
I think it was cute. I actually saw it last night. I prepped for the show, and I didn't know much about it going in. And it did some things that I didn't expect when it comes to these type of teen coming of age films. It was really good, but there were a few moments where I did kind of feel sorry for a select few characters in kind of different ways.
Okay.
Like the I forget the character's name, but so what the plot? Sorry about this.
It's okay, no problem.
Trying to figure it.
So the plot of the film, if you want me just to go, so it's about a girl named Ellie, and she's very isolated, and she doesn't really have any friends. She seems to be living in a very small town where really I feel like she's the only person of color. It's a very white town, and she's constantly ridiculed for being intelligent and being nerdy, but yet everyone wants to kind of, support her because she's saving their asses in the classroom writing papers for them. It becomes a very interesting story when a kid named Paul approaches her to write a love letter to a girl named Aster, who he has feelings for. And really, that's kind of all you really want to know about the plot if you're going to watch this film, because it goes into some unlikely places. I think this was a movie for me that I was not knowing what to expect from it. Again, it came as a Twitter recommendation from Janelle Riley 2 days ago. I saw her post, and I said, you know what? I didn't have a topic. I didn't have a movie picked out for this week. So I said, you know what? It's on Netflix. Let's try it out. And I was very pleasantly surprised with the film, mainly because of the fact that it's been a while since I've actually watched a really small independent film, and you can tell that this was a really small independent film, only about like a handful of characters, and shot in like one location. For the most part, it's like all takes place in like one little town and like on the outskirts. Really interesting coming of age story tied in with LGBTQ storylines and angles in there. I just was really surprised by the film. You could definitely feel a little bit of its length at times. I feel like it's a little long. But again, it's been a while since I've actually sat down and watched an independent film, which is very character driven. But at the end of the day, it really hit me, and I don't know if I would say I absolutely loved it, but it struck a chord with me. So Alexander, go back. Did I mean, I know I put you on the spot there, but like hopefully that'll help a little bit.
It did, because I was still processing the movie a bit. I actually kind of disagree about the length of the movie. I didn't feel like it dragged out very long. Like I felt like it was as long as it needed to be, and it ended in probably the best place it could have ended. I come across this as like, it's one of those movies where the characters feel very real, and that kind of like doesn't work for me personally, because there are just a lot of points where I watch this movie and the characters act in ways that are just too real that it makes me like, I feel sorry for them watching it. Like I feel with the character of Paul, this, when he pops up for the first time and he asks Ellie to help him write love letters to this girl that he loves, it's just, in a way, I just felt sorry for him. I know it should be a sweet moment, but I felt it's like, man, you've got no shot. Like I'm sorry, I want to support you, but you just it's not meant to be. But I do love the how as Ellie is writing all these love letters, trying to be Paul to Aster, she kind of discovers herself and starts to develop feelings for Aster herself. And that was kind of a clever way to go about this, like developing a romance without these two characters actually being together.
Yes. I would have to agree with you, Alexander. I'm glad you pointed that out. This to me was very real in the portrayal of these characters. I would say that you can definitely tell it was made for a very certain demographic, in terms of like, they didn't push the boundaries a little bit. They didn't go overkill with the boundaries. Like they weren't making an R-rated movie. And I think Alice Wu, who is the writer and director, knew she wanted this to be relatable to teenagers and people who felt that need of hiding themselves and being afraid of who they are. So I was taken back by how real the characters were. And I also like that this movie has this great messaging of, love versus friendship, and how, as the story kind of goes on, there's this question of, why do you love this person? And it keeps being brought up over and over and over again. And you kind of see with one character, it kind of shifts near the end of the film. And I felt like that was a really special moment, even though, like you said, things don't always go as planned for this character. And you just kind of like, man, things are not working out for you. But at the same time, it allowed one of the other characters. I'm being vague just in case you haven't seen this movie, because I want people to check it out. I think it's well worth watching on Netflix, for sure. But in the process, another person learns a little bit about themselves. And then, I don't know, it's a weird movie because you only have like 3 central characters. And yet I feel like every one of them really change throughout this hour and like 40-minute movie. And that, like you were saying, I think it just makes it seem so incredibly real. And maybe even at times why near the end, it was a little hard to watch. And I kind of got teary-eyed because it just feels like something that would happen, and these feel like characters that I would know or that exist in the real world. So,
yeah, very much so.
Yeah. So, I think that this is a film that was going to premiere at the Tribeca Film Festival. That's where it was originally supposed to be playing. I think that the film probably had a better chance getting picked up by Netflix and playing on Netflix the way that it has played so far, because I think it's a great platform. Netflix, especially over the last couple of months, I've been spending a lot of time watching Netflix, and I've really noticed the diversity in the content, but also the types of stories that they're telling. And I mean, they're doing so much more than any other studio without asking for the pat on the back. I really appreciate them more and more every single day, knowing that they're putting movies like this out there, because I think there's going to be some girl who's going to watch this movie and her life's going to be impacted and changed because of this movie. And that not only goes to Netflix for putting this out, having the courage to put something like this out, but also Alice Wu for actually creating a story that feels so incredibly personal and real. So, I mean, again, I didn't go Google Gaga love it, but I think this is a good movie where, like, with a little bit more budget and a little bit more tweaking, could have been like an amazing, great movie that would have came out of loving it. But I do see its purpose, and I do really enjoy it. Alexander, you have any final thoughts on it?
Well, being on Netflix, and since nobody has anything to do right now, you got no excuse not to see it. If you listen to our conversation and you're like, yeah, I kind of want to see it, then it's on Netflix. What do you got to lose?
Right. All right, so we're going to go over to Shannon real quick, and we're going to talk a little bit about this man right here, Dwayne Johnson, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yes.
I know, Shannon, you didn't get to see the last movie. I didn't give much notice this week, so I do apologize about that. But I do both of us, I think, recommend checking it out, and I'll be curious to hear your thoughts when you do see it. So Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, his birthday is today. I'm curious to hear about your first introduction to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and what is like your favorite role of his so far?
Oh my God, The Rock is like, I swear to God, that guy can do like no wrong. Funny enough, my first introduction to him was my brother was really into wrestling, and I took him to one of those big, I don't know anything about wrestling, so I'm sorry if I
No, it's okay.
all
I don't
the
know
wrestling
fans
either. A wrestling match, whatever team he was on.
WWE, something like that.
And I actually, we got to see him. So that was my first introduction to him. As an actor, I can't remember the first film I remember him in, but I just remember that each time I saw him, I just would continuously enjoy his movies, no matter how ridiculous they may be. I have a massive fear of natural disasters. So since I run a horror website, I find that I don't have a lot of the same, fears that other people who may not like the genre have. Mine come in the form of natural disasters. Tsunamis are like one of my biggest fears of all time. And San Andreas like scared the shit out of me. And I like love that movie so much. And I remember actually seeing it at God, this is when I first moved to California, and Doug Benson was kind of doing like these, I don't know, these screenings of movies, and then he would like narrate over them. And he did one for San Andreas, and it was hysterical. But like, I really love that movie. Skyscraper, I love. Yeah. I understand that it's like every other action movie out there, but I don't care, like combined. I thought he was phenomenal in Jumanji. And I'm a huge fan of the original Jumanji. I don't know. I just like, even Fast and Furious, like to me, he can do no wrong. Like if Dwayne Johnson's in a movie, I'm 100% going to see it.
Awesome. Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. It's kind of interesting because I was not a fan of wrestling either, and I remember his tagline, you know, like, "Do you smell what the Rock is cooking?" kind of thing. And I remember because everyone was like talking about this guy, and they were like, "This is like the wrestler who's going to be like the next Hulk Hogan, who's going to be, you know, someone who transitions into other forms of media."
Yeah.
And, you know, Hulk Hogan really, you know, he did a couple movies, but they weren't like, I don't even think they were enjoyable for what they were. They they were just bad. And I don't think he has anywhere near the level of charisma that Dwayne Johnson has.
No. And it was funny, like, because I was talking to my boyfriend about it, and we were saying, or my boyfriend was like, "Who hates The Rock?" Like, nobody hates The Rock. And I was like, I actually know one person who like hates Dwayne Johnson, which is like mind blowing to me because he just seems so wonderful.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't think I don't know how anyone could dislike him. He just oozes charisma, and he just seems like even though like he's a big meathead, he's just like this lovable teddy bear that you just can't help but like love and everything. Alex, what do you think?
I actually think, I'm pretty much in the Rock camp as well. I mean, I hate wrestling, so I was not exposed to him through wrestling. I unfortunately was exposed to him for the first time when he was in The Mummy Returns. That terrible CGI Rock. Like even back in 2001, you watched it and went, "Ooh, Lord, that does not hold up." But for a while, between The Mummy Returns and up until Fast 5, there was a point where like he just could not get off the ground in terms of acting because he was in stuff like Doom, Southland Tales, The Tooth Fairy. So it was just like, why are you in these roles? But then I think once Fast 5 came around, he just exploded in terms of acting, and I've loved him in everything he's been in since.
I even loved him in Baywatch.
Oh, really?
Oh my God. I had a blast through that movie. Him and Zac Efron are ridiculous, and he just keeps making fun of Zac Efron. I love it.
He was looking for you when that movie came out on Twitter because he was like, "Why are all the critics bashing this movie?" Oh, I remember that.
And even like Central Intelligence, like.
Oh, I love Central Intelligence. That was great.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alexander.
I would say that like Central Intelligence was legitimately funny. I didn't see Baywatch, but from the stuff I've seen in like clips, I'm just like, come on. But that's just me. I mean, I feel like he is in a way like ever since he took on the Fast and Furious series, he's now kind of the closest thing we have to a modern like the new Arnold Schwarzenegger, because he's got this international appeal to him. He's charismatic, even in the bad stuff that he's in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he just like, he carries a movie just based on his charm and charisma. And I mean, to the point where for Fast and Furious movies, when people say between The Rock or Vin Diesel, who do you lose? People will actually, people will actually say you got to get rid of the star, the guy who was in the first Fast and Furious movie.
Yeah,
it's like it's absurd.
Oh, I agree. Don't you, Shannon, think that like the next Fast and the Furious is going to lose something just because it doesn't have him and Jason Statham in it?
I mean, we just need to like wrap up the Fast and Furious.
Yes.
Like it's been, I get it. Like we all get it.
Yeah. Well,
honestly, after the James Wan Fast and Furious, I think it was 7.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was like, we should have wrapped this up. Like 100%.
Because those movies, up until The Rock came in, I feel like those movies only worked because of the dynamic between Vin Diesel and Paul Walker. Since you have no Paul Walker, not Vin Diesel. Jason Statham and Dwayne Johnson are the only two people that actually get this series.
Yeah.
And since neither of them are going to be in Fast 9, I feel like it's just I'm not as interested. And the fact that it's getting delayed till next year, I think that's just giving plenty of time for everyone to kind of sit on that trailer and just go, this is this is going to be stupid, but not in the enjoyable reasons.
Yeah, I was like heartbroken, even though I understand why, when Jungle Cruise was moved. Jungle Cruise is one of my favorite rides at Disney. And I thought it looked great. And I was like, oh, The Rock's in it. I guess I'll see this. So knowing that it's now extended to next year.
Yeah.
I'm pretty bummed about it, but
I was very curious about that movie too, because Emily Blunt and him just look like, from that trailer and from that little thing that they did at D23, they just look like they had a blast while making it, but they had like this, almost like they both have like that sarcastic personalities.
Yeah.
They were just playing back and forth with one another. And I love the whole gag that, they made two. I don't know if they ever showed those in public here, but like at D23, they did 2 different trailers where one was all about Dwayne Johnson's character and one was all about Emily Blunt's character. And they both were just kind of like riffing off one another and saying like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah. Yep. I think that's going to be a great film. And I'm looking at IMDb right now, and there's going to be a San Andreas too. So
is there really?
It's announced. And same with Big Trouble in Little China with him in it.
Well, he's also got his Black Adam movie.
Yes.
There's
a lot coming.
I wonder, he's probably going crazy right now because that man doesn't stop. But now he actually has to stop.
Yeah.
So yeah. If I may ask, because I'm just out of curiosity, I know you said that you can't remember the exact movie that you first introduced you to Dwayne Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
I remember The Rundown and Walking Tall, which was very, very early in his career. But he's been through so many different movies, a lot of action movies, family friendly. Again, also, isn't it weird that he's been able to, with the exception of The Tooth Fairy, because I know like people don't like that one, but like Game Plan was cute, and the Jumanji movies, I think he's able to kind of cross over into the family friendly territory. But what has been your favorite Dwayne Johnson performance so far?
Going back to probably, I thought Central Intelligence was hysterical. I was so surprised with how funny that was. That's probably one of my favorites. I really like him in Jumanji. I don't know. There's so many. I guess it depends on my mood and like if I want a good movie or a bad movie. Because then I could be like, oh yeah, I really like, and I love Rampage. Because I was kind of like really close to this Godzilla-like horror fantasy type thing, even though it was completely ridiculous.
Oh my god, it was! Oh my god, Malin Ackerman in that movie. Oh
yeah,
it was so ridiculous, and I loved it. He could do no wrong.
You guys remember when he did Be Cool, where he was like a gay cowboy actor?
I don't think I ever saw that.
That was like early. That was 2005. So it was early when he was trying to be an actor.
Yeah.
I'm looking on IMDb right now.
It was the sequel to Get Shorty.
I never have heard of it.
Yeah, it was I think it was very highly anticipated. I think the reviews were kind of mixed on it. I think people were like they weren't sure because again, it was like trying to live up to Get Shorty, which is a classic. So.
Yeah. I don't know.
And that was during a time when also like we've been through a weird time in Hollywood where like sometimes sequels don't live up to the original, but recently I feel like we've had a really good run on sequels doing better than the original.
There's a sequel coming out that I think is going to go head to head with its original, but it got pushed back.
Oh yeah, me too. I know what movie you're talking about. Yeah, it's really, really good.
I would say in terms of that, I think last year was not particularly good for sequels because there were either a lot of bombs or movies that underperformed.
Yeah, like which ones would you say on that?
Well, last year alone, Dark Phoenix, Godzilla, Men in Black.
I love Godzilla.
I like Godzilla too, but I have to admit that it did not perform as well as people would have hoped it would.
Oh no, not at all. Yeah, you know what? You're right. That was a rough year for that. And
even the Rise of Skywalker is the lowest. Of the lowest performing in both manners of the sequel trilogy.
Well, I know Shannon has her Baby Yoda cup, so I'm not going to get into
Well, I didn't like Rise of Skywalker.
Oh,
I thought that movie was awful.
Yeah,
Mandalorian is completely different.
Yeah, don't associate the child with.
No. Oh my God.
Stick to television now, okay? Because those movies are not good.
I was like, they needed more porgs. Anyways.
Yeah, those. I was gonna say, for my favorite Dwayne Johnson movie, I actually have to go with something that Shannon pointed out, and I have to say, like, it's either Jumanji or Skyscraper, because I know people are like, Skyscraper is just a poor man's ripoff of Die Hard.
Whatever.
But he was just so in it. Like, he was just so in it. And it was so extreme. And it was like an homage to Die Hard, but then it was like also elements of like Fast and the Furious with ridiculousness, like with the freaking leg and everything. I don't know. It
makes no sense. Like it makes absolutely no sense. And I love like, every minute.
and like Nev Campbell and him have like no chemistry whatsoever. You're just like watching it and you're like, I don't buy this, but for some reason, like I'm still invested. But I mean, Jumanji, though, I think Jumanji is the weirdest movie to me because like it is a movie that if we all remember that first trailer for the first movie, everyone was like, what the fuck are you doing to our beloved franchise, like our beloved movie with Robin Williams? What are you doing? You know, the classic, like, stop fucking with my childhood. And we wound up like not everyone, but like the majority of critics and audiences ate that movie up. And then the second one came and like they decided to go a little bit further by adding more characters and doing some more like impressions. And just everyone in that film, like everyone I think was like, besides Karen Gillan, was kind of like, everyone was like on the verge of kind of getting sick of them. Like I think Kevin Hart is a little bit like that, where people are like, I don't know if I'm really into Kevin Hart anymore. Jack Black, it's like, too much. So like those two really had like this resurgence because of the Jumanji.
Oh yeah.
And it just showed again that Dwayne Johnson had the ability to go from an action movie to a family film and can pull it off with no problems.
Yeah.
Well, it was a family film that was made to his strengths. It wasn't anything like he did prior to Fast and Furious, where it was a family movie, but it was still a action movie. So it definitely played to his strengths that time around.
Yeah. What was your favorite movie from him, Alexander?
I might cheat because he's technically doing a voice for it, but Moana.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much an animated rock, but I think it's probably my favorite of his movies. In terms of his like roles, that might be a different story because I as cheesy as Luke Hobbs is in the Fast and Furious movies, there's just something about that character that is just, again, that amps those movies up for me.
I agree.
I respect that.
In Skyscraper, a lot of people say it's a ripoff of Die Hard, but one of the best elements it took from Die Hard was that it made its protagonist vulnerable, because we're used to Dwayne Johnson in a lot of his other action movies being invincible and he can't be touched at all. Skyscraper was one of the few movies where his character was vulnerable and could easily get hurt, and you believed it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's a lot of, obviously the three of us have given Skyscraper a lot of love. I mean, I don't know how anyone could like walk out of that movie and like dislike it, like really like hate it. Like, I can understand people saying like it's not a good movie, like, because again, going back to Shannon's point about Rampage, I don't think Rampage is a good movie, but I think it's an enjoyable dumb monster movie. So like a lot of action movies also are not very good, but they're fun. So like that's where we kind of have to take like our critic hats off and kind of just like appreciate a movie for what it is.
Yeah.
That's a conversation for a much larger conversation for another day. But I think that's really where like a lot of people have disconnects with critics, is that yes, we all know that like Parasite's an amazing movie, from a critical standpoint, a storytelling standpoint, but it's not typically the type of movie that people want to go out and watch, because people want something that's fun, lighthearted, and kind of like turning my mind off. The world is stressful and crazy enough. I just want to be entertained. So that's where I think critics sometimes, don't really get the general public. So
yeah,
I suppose.
So on that note, let's switch over to the depressing topic, which is the future of this industry that we are in, Hollywood. And I wanted to bring this up because I feel like this week there's been a lot of conversation. I've been reading a lot of think pieces, Variety, Deadline, Hollywood Reporter, and a couple of other sites. A lot of people are talking about like how the industry is going to change, how things are going to be impacted. There was an article that actually came out today where people were talking about how movie theaters are going to function in the state where they're reopening now, where they're going to have like, you're going to have what it was, a TSA, almost like testing and security checks and stuff like that. Just want to get your overall feelings on what you think. First, let's start with it from the beginning. Realistically, in your mind right now, when do you foresee Hollywood in general reopening?
Are you talking about like just theaters, or theaters and like people going back to work?
I'm talking about people within the industry starting, like productions kind of starting to roll again. When do you think like productions will start kicking in again?
Next year.
Okay. What do you think, Alex?
The longer we've gone on during this pandemic, I'd probably say next year also, just because it seems like there's no end in sight.
Yeah, I'm gonna join here and say next year as well, because I every time I think there's a glimmer of hope, it just kind of like a day or two goes by, and I feel like, oh, never mind. I mean, I hate to be Debbie Downer, but that's just the way it seems.
Yeah.
So I want to talk. We talked a little bit about this on one of the episodes, but the streaming thing with the Oscars. Do you think that our organization obviously is going to have to more than likely adapt and to do this as well, where we're going to have to be doing that? Do you think we're going to have any forms of ceremonies this year? Or when do you think we're going to actually have a ceremony?
It's kind of hard to say. I mean, that's difficult because it would have to be in the format that everyone's doing right now, where you can't have any live like shows or stage presentations. It's just gonna have to be like this. If there's any, I don't want to sound sarcastic at all, but if there's any like hope, not hope, but if in terms of the Oscars, if the Oscars are going to have to do this kind of format, they might be shorter.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
But I mean, think about how much work that would take.
Yeah.
I mean, usually, well, when's the first award ceremony of this season?
January 2nd, which is the Golden Globes, supposedly.
I bet they're going to push. I bet by that point they'll want to push it till later. I think by like January, like if there isn't something happening, people are going to like full on go the purge. Like,
I agree.
That's almost a reality.
I think it's going to happen way sooner. But I think if by January, like, I mean, I hope that they find a vaccine by then or cure, but I could see them pushing everything to a later time.
Oh, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, this was supposed to be the year where Tina Fey and Amy Poehler was supposed to come back for the Golden Globes. But I think you're right. I mean, I don't think they're gonna have anything else that they could do but push it, because and the date I think is supposed to be January. I'm trying to find the exact date. It's funny because I feel like everyone probably like deleted the articles now when they have the date, because I know they announced the date already. But I think, the Golden Globes always lead the way. The Oscars are supposed to be February 28th. But I don't know how people are going to be able to adapt to this, because I don't know if anyone here has done any virtual junkets. Shannon, have you done any virtual junkets yet?
I have done via phone junkets. I think I'm doing my first video one soon.
Okay. So like they're really well set up. So like they're a great tool to use, and I think it's going to become a future thing that's going to be used, especially for smaller independent releases, because you can really just get talent to the hotel. You don't have to fly people out, give someone a webcam for like $100, a microphone for $50, and let them sit in front of their computer, and you kind of get the same interaction that you would. And it's fully edited. That's the great thing about it. Like when they send you the video, or if you record.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So like I've done ones where like literally like I'll ask the question and I can kind of like move this like I just did this to make you go on there, and then I can go back to me, and it's all like live. So it kind of works and it records that way. But I think the technology, if you have it available, which is also a problem right now, is that Logitech, who's like one of the biggest producers of webcams and video conferencing, is completely out of stock until like June and July. Now we're talking about Oscars, we're talking about Hollywood. They have money to burn. It's not like us where we like look at like a $200 or $300 webcam and like, that's ridiculous. This webcam used to be 50 or $100. To them, like they can go on eBay and probably buy up all of them and send them to people. But the reality is that they would have to buy them. They would have to have someone come in and set them up. And I don't know if they're really fully prepared for doing that. So it'll be interesting to see who is the first to do some sort of like ceremony online. And I'm just wondering if you guys had any thoughts on, do you think it would be the Golden Globes who would try it online first? Or do you think it's something where they would let actually the Oscars try to do it first, since the Oscars clearly have made a call about the streaming movies before the Golden Globes did? Because that's also very interesting that a lot of people didn't talk about, is that Golden Globes are technically first, yet the Oscars made the push first.
Yeah.
I would say. Did you say?
I was just gonna say I think it's interesting how all of these different, like whether it's Universal coming out with their statements on streaming and being in theaters, or the Oscars coming out first. It's like this race, like
yeah,
it's very interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think I actually feel like the Emmys are gonna be the first test.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes,
because the Emmys are currently they're scheduled for September 20th. So we'll see what they end up doing, and then I think whatever the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences does, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences will probably follow, and so will some of the other award guilds.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And I totally forgot about the Emmys. And it's funny because there's so much content coming out right now in terms of television. Like Netflix dropped Hollywood this weekend right now. Apple dropped Home Before Dark a couple weeks ago. Defending Jacob, I think, was the week before. Everyone's really pushing it. There's that Miss America show with Cate Blanchett. There's a lot of content out there in terms of what's there to watch right now. But my thoughts are, we have all this content coming out now. What do you think is going to happen in the fall?
That'll be interesting to see. I mean, we don't even know what's going to happen in July, because that's the point.
I'm talking specifically about content, because right now, like, everything's being pushed out, right? Because everyone's hoping that there'll be a cure. Everything will go back to, whatever normal is going to be.
Yeah.
But let's just play devil's advocate with the world right now and just say that, like, this is still going as bad as it is right now in, say, end of August, beginning of September.
I think that that's very viable, because that's when the second wave is supposed to hit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think there's going to be issues.
Yeah. And I don't know if they're going to have, I don't know if the studios are ready, or if they were prepped to actually have content to be broadcast, on television after this. Because I know obviously we have our whole slew of Oscar movies that are supposed to come out that probably didn't go through proper testing, like they would have had test screenings. But I don't know if television, because like once the Emmys happen, it's usually like a brand new season of shows. And I don't think, like, I don't know, just like one show that I watched, like This Is Us, or like The Masked Singer, or just all these shows that people have like really been talking about. I don't know if they have the other season done. So like content might shift very greatly in September. And that's going to be a whole nother conversation when we have it. And then if that does happen, but like, I don't know if we actually going to have much content. Like they're pushing out so much new content right now that I think it would be wise for them to kind of step back and say, like, you know what, maybe we need to delay some of this stuff a little bit to spread it out.
Thank God.
Yeah.
We're going to have season 2 of The Mandalorian at the end of October.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know what else we're going to have other than that, unless they have shit in the can. They're probably going to do like a whole bunch of like unaired pilots. They're like, all right, we got these pilots. We weren't going to do anything with them. Let's see if they'll work now.
Yeah. That would be interesting to see. Here's all the stuff that didn't get picked up, so you could judge for yourself.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. And then I just, I wanted to ask, with the article that came out today about the movie theater stuff, and bringing up your point, Shannon, about Trolls, all the drama going on about one freaking kids movie. I mean,
who knew it was going to be Trolls that brought down the entire film industry?
It's completely appropriate, apparently.
I have a lot of thoughts on it.
Go for it. No, share some. I'm actually really curious about this. Is like why I want to bring up this topic, because I wanted to talk about like why. Go ahead. I want to hear your thoughts.
I do love going to the movies. I think
Yep.
it's, I've been going to the movies since I was a kid. I love it. However, I think that theaters are incredibly expensive. And if you go to an AMC or you go to a Regal, essentially if you go to anything other than an Alamo Drafthouse, at least that I have found, it's people are always talking. It's always a disaster. And it's like, I'm paying all this money to go watch a movie, or I could just pay the same amount, watch it in my house and pause it if I need to. So I understand the importance of seeing certain films in a theater, but I don't think it's that big of a deal if it's then also offered, video on demand. Like some people can't always go to the theater. So I think having that option is really good, especially if you're like, I'm high risk. So I don't know when I'll be able to go to a theater again, but I still want to be able to watch movies, and to have that option, I think is really good.
Yeah. Alexander, you have anything to say? I have a lot to say on this too.
It'll be, I mean, I'm in the same camp where I just like going to the theaters it's sort of like a break from the outside world. As cliche as that sounds, it's the one time like where I'm just like, okay, I'm forgetting my problems. I'm going to sit down and watch something for 2 hours. And I think theaters will survive, but I think it's going to be in a different, I think they're going to change more or less. And I think it might be more with the way films are released. Because I think, especially with last year, how we just had a huge, how do I phrase this? Just a huge offering of these big franchise films where most of them didn't perform very well. I think this whole pandemic might allow a chance for studios to kind of cut back on those type of movies and try to go smaller. And any big franchise movie or big event film that is made will still maintain a theatrical run, but anything that's a lot smaller will probably have the option of a limited run and VOD simultaneously.
Okay, awesome. Michael Lee is joining us now. Hello, Michael Lee. I don't know.
Hello. I'm so sorry. I got my schedules mixed up, and I'm just jumping in here now.
I'm just going to throw you right in the mix. I'm going to pretend like you were here the entire time.
That's fine.
So this is Michael Lee. Michael Lee,
Hi,
what site do you work for? Where can people find you real quick?
Right now, you guys can find me at geeksofdoom.com and that'sitla.com.
All right, awesome. So Michael, you're joining in on the conversation. We started the big conversation about the future of Hollywood, the future of movie industry. Shannon gave her point already. Alexander gave some of his thoughts on it. I'm going to just throw you right in the mix. What's some of your thoughts on this? We were talking about the Universal Trolls thing. Do you think movie theaters are going to survive? Yada, yada, yada. All those fun topics you just wanted to be thrown into.
I think it's a lose-lose situation for both places because if you think about it, Universal will lose out on showing things like Fast and Furious. You don't want to see Fast and Furious on a laptop or on your TV screen. That's something that deserves to be seen on a big screen. At the same time, theaters will lose out on that as well. So there's this like place. It's like stuck in a limbo, I guess. That's what I want to say for films. And I think partially Disney's playing it right by releasing some of their like probable bombs like Artemis Fowl on streaming. It makes more sense for them to do that. But there are more guaranteed big hits like Black Widow and Mulan was shifted. And I'm not even sure if Mulan will even make it into July because the way this thing's tracking is just, it doesn't feel like we're going to be opening anytime soon anyway. So that's just my thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, fantastic points. It's interesting that you mentioned Disney because notice how that article didn't come out and attack Disney. even though they pulled the movie from a theater and they're going to put it on their streaming service. No mention of that. There was also, so far, there was no mention of Warner Brothers with Scoop, which also is going to be doing the exact same thing, going either, I think it's either going to be on VOD or they're going to release it on HBO. I don't know what the exact layout of it is yet. I think they were just going to do the 1995 thing like Universal did. And I'm wondering how that's going to play out now that this has become a topic of conversation. But to the point is, I think the biggest thing, and this is something that Shannon was pointing out, is at the end of the day, it all really does come down to money. And first of all, I think all this conversation about Regal and AMC being all upset about this is ridiculous. Someone who loves going to a movie theater, just like all of us, we all love going to the movie theater. It's an escape. It makes us forget about our problems. When I was a little kid and I was having a bad day, I would literally ride my bike like 2 miles across town to go to the movie theater and watch whatever the hell was playing. So I love going to the movie theater. I'll never stop loving going to the movie theater. But there's a lot of factors that you need to look at. Number one, the studios, unlike the independent companies, which no fucking theater chains complaining about all these independent movies that had to go to streaming. No one's complaining about that. Where's the concern for like the trip to Italy or Sheila and the Spades and all these other movies that needed to go into theater? No, because no one cares about the independent film. Again, they all want to pretend like they do when award season comes around, but because those don't really put asses in seats, there's not that much conversation about that. But with Trolls, what I think is fascinating about it is that, again, Trolls, marketing, and maybe it's just my opinion, the marketing for Trolls never looked that great. I think people were kind of like, it doesn't look that good. Like everyone kind of had like that mixed vibe about it, even kids. I don't feel like I remember seeing the trailer with a couple kids in various movies, and it didn't have the same reaction that people had to the first one. So I think they were uncertain about it, very, very much like you were saying about the Disney Artemis Fowl. So they did it, and they did a test run. But the numbers that speak that they published, that says a lot about how much money that movie theaters are making, which I don't think that we or most consumers really thought about. Because I don't know about you guys, but when I always heard about movie theaters, I always heard the reason why popcorn's like $8 or whatever it is because movie theaters make no money. And when you look at the Trolls numbers, like what they did in that article where they compared the first Trolls movie to the second Trolls movie and how much money was made and how much was divided up into the theaters, to me, it seems like the movie theater was making quite a bit of money. Now, again, I know there's like thousands of movie theaters, so maybe when you break them up, there's not that much. But to me, there's like a big percentage. But this is Hollywood. This is an industry. Everyone's looking for money. So I think first the thing is that all studios, if they had the balls to do this, would try the same formula and see how it works. Like Michael Lee pointed out, maybe because they have all these streaming platforms that they're all trying to launch, they'll do like they did with Onward. Onward was like a flop. Like, let's be real. Like, Onward was not doing well, and like they put it on Disney Plus, and it became a little bit of a hit. And Artemis Fowl probably would not have done well, but they'll probably put it on there and it'll do okay. It's, like, again, who knows? We don't ever know the internal numbers of these things. But we need to see every single studio kind of take this approach and try to put things out there first and see how they do. Because was this a fluke? Was it because of the pandemic where it was like everyone was looking for escape and something for kids to watch? Try it with a different movie that a studio kind of has like a middle of the road expectation for. I don't want I do kind of want Fast and the Furious on that format because I don't want to friggin' go see that in the movie theater anymore. But, but that's just me. I know other people want to see that damn movie in the movie theater. But ultimately, what I'm getting at is like studios need to take risks right now, and the theaters should also be doing what Alexander pointed out and say that the movie theaters are going to change now. People are going to be afraid to go for quite some time when this happens, and they're only going to go out to major event movies. And if people are not watching these smaller movies that are free or like streaming for like $4 or $5, there's like 50 or 60 movies that came out over the last 2 months. None of them are being talked about. None of them. And the same thing's going to happen. Everyone's going to talk about Wonder Woman. Everyone's going to talk about Mulan, Black Widow. But that's like 5 to 10 movies that have come out a year. What about all the other 200 movies that come out? Not to mention the 400 independent movies. So I think we just have to have a bigger picture conversation about that, in the long run. I think studios and theaters are just reacting very like instantaneously without knowing how this is going to play out in the long run.
There's no way that AMC, which is about to file for bankruptcy, is not going to let Universal show F9, Jurassic World, the new Bond movie. Like, there's no way. And it's like, it's okay to have both options when the time comes. Like, it's okay. Like, it doesn't have to be such a huge fight, especially when there's much bigger things to worry about.
Especially considering that all theaters are closed, so they can't show anything right now. Like, where do you have sorry to AMC, but it's like, where do you have a high horse on not showing a theater's movies when you aren't showing anything right now? And as Shannon pointed out, you're on the verge of bankruptcy.
I mean, I think that they came after Universal hard because Universal has been kind of spearheading the change, by putting Trolls out. I had no desire to see Trolls at all. Decided to do it. I loved it. I thought it was so much fun. And I think that it opened the door for more people to check something out that they normally wouldn't see. And I think because Universal's been spearheading it, that's why they're getting, this pushback. Because to your point, Scoob, I don't know why I keep calling it Scooby.
Scooby-Doo.
Scoob, was announced, and there was like no blowback for that. And Artemis Fowl, and there was no blowback for that. But why is it Universal? Because their movie made $100 million off of essentially streaming. Like, I think it's because they're spearheading everything. And I think other studios are going to be like, oh, well, look at that. If we do that, we could make money, whatever.
And I think it became a scare tactic right now where I think people, I think people are eager for this kind of content. People wanted a lot of these movies to come out. And again, we do want to see a lot of these movies because I think we can all agree that watching a movie at home and watching a movie on the big screen, it does not have the same effect. It's a totally different experience. You're easily distracted, yada, yada, yada. But the bottom line is that, and I'm just going to say it, not all movies need to be experienced on the big screen or deserve to be viewed on the big screen. I'm just going to say that. Like, there are like maybe 10 to like 20 movies where I'm like, every year where I'm like, you have to go to the movie theater to experience this. But do I need to see a movie like Motherless Brooklyn or Blinded by the Light or, like things on the big screen? Like, do I want to see them as a critic? Yes, on the big screen. But if I had to watch it at home, I'll watch it at home. It's not really going to impact my feelings on the movie.
I have sorry, I don't know why I keep jumping in.
Sure.
But like, because I watch, my main source is horror films. Yeah. I'm usually more scared watching a screener on my laptop of a horror film than I am in a theater because I'm more isolated and by myself and it's usually dark. But I think you can get, like I said, you can experience both and still love both. But yeah, I think there's only a certain amount that you really need to see on the big screen.
Yeah, and I think right now it's an ego role that's being played because AMC wants to kind of say like, hey, you need us, right? Like, you need us to show these other movies. And which I agree. Like, I actually, like, it's funny. I kind of see both sides of the equation because, like, yes, I want certain movies to be theater only, like for a while, and then they go to Blu-ray and all that digital. But I do want them to have like a theatrical release. But then I also think, like, you need to kind of like look at what the options are and kind of say, for this individual movie, is it wise if this goes to theaters? Like, you have to go to a movie theater to see Quiet Place 2. Like, you have to.
Yeah.
But like,
Oh yeah.
you don't need to go to a movie theater to see Trolls.
No, you don't.
So you need to understand, and I think studios have really gotten greedy with that by trying to push this. And to Alexander's point, is that we've started to see some burnout because there's so much to choose from. Even in awards season last year, movies like Bombshell came out, and like there was no discussion about that movie. There was just like, I mean, and they had Scarlett Johansson and Margot Robbie come out to every goddamn screening of that movie. And like screened it 100 times. Yeah, but no one talked about it, right?
Yeah,
like made
no
like
one talked.
$14-15 million at the movie theater. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. I would love to see the new Candyman in theaters.
Yeah.
But I've also resigned myself to the fact that it's probably not going to happen.
So I'm just curious, Michael, what do you think is ultimately going to come out of this with this whole battle? Do you think they're going to just kiss and make up and everything will go back to normal once this is all over, or do you think this is going to be forever change where they're going to actually really have to adjust the structure?
I think the latter, the whole adjust the structure, because to Shannon's point about releasing, and to your point as well about releasing certain movies, looking at the optics of which movies are, financially beneficial for studios. Like, we put all this money into Trolls, but would it have performed as well? We may never know. It might not have, like we said, because the marketing wasn't doing as well, being well received. So they just not dumped it, but they put it on streaming, and it worked out for them. But as opposed to like other films like Scoob, which I've seen the trailers, but I just didn't react, as well as some other people have, and I was just like, maybe that would do better at a streaming site rather than a theater. So I think they're going to just weigh their options and say, you know what, we put all this money into it. We might as well release it on like an HBO Max or for Disney, they might as well release their Artemis Fowl on their streaming platforms. So that's what I'm thinking.
Okay. How about you, Alexander? What do you think?
I think it's going to be a bit of both. Back to my point of how we're going to see a slowdown in terms of these giant franchise movies. The ones that do come out like Fast 9 and Jurassic World Dominion, those are the ones that you kind of have to see in theaters. So I think the feud that AMC is having right now is not going to last very long. At the same time, like with all the movies, to bring up the point that it's expensive to go to theaters for something that's probably not worth seeing in theaters. If you got a family of 4, you just pay $20 for a movie rather than 15 tickets per person for one movie, and that works out well. So yeah. I think it's going to depend on the movie that comes out and how the studios decide to market said movie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many times you guys do this, but like one of the things that I would recommend, and I recommend this to all critics, is that watch a movie and like think about like, is this worth like what a normal person would pay to see it? And that's why I actually go.
I think about that all the time.
I do that a lot, considering I had to drive all the way just to screen a movie.
That's what I'm saying. So like I think about that all the time too, because now I live out here in like Ventura County, and I'm driving 45 minutes to the theater, 45 minutes back, basically an hour and a half of my time, then 2 hours there, and then if I review the movie or I have to do interviews, it's another. Like it really starts adding up in time and also cost. And then every once in a while now, like I got the Regal pass right before this. So I like spend $20 a month is like nothing. But, I think what Alexander said is really, really the most important thing to take away from this is that if you're someone who doesn't have a lot of resources and money, and that's something that we often forget too, is that normal people don't go to the movies every weekend. Normal people go to the movies probably like once or twice a month. And they already know what movie they're going to see way in advance because they either hear the reaction or they see like trailers and stuff like that, and they know they want to see it. But having a movie come out where you can pay $20, you can have the guys over, the girls over, whatever it is, the kid, the family, order a fucking pizza. You can literally have a whole party at the house for like what it's going to cost for like a family of 4 to go to a movie theater.
And you can rewatch the movie too.
And you can rewatch the movie.
Yeah.
For which is great for kids, right? Because I'm sure that every family that had the Trolls who the kids were into, they probably watched that at least once, at least twice or 3 times during that period of time that they got. So I don't know. I also think just, I know we have to wrap this up, but I think it's too early for any of this conversation to kind of happen and that's why I think everyone's reacting prematurely because you kind of need testing, right? There needs to be testing done. So you can't say like, that's it, Universal, you're done after one movie. Every studio needs to kind of look at a couple of movies and kind of put them out and do side-by-side comparisons to movies that are similar in a movie theater and say like, all right, here's the numbers from this. Here's the numbers from this. Which one made more sense?
Yeah, and I think also theaters need to understand that, like to Alexander's point, they're not open right now. So like people want to be entertained. And so this is just the studios being like, I can't put it in theaters. So here is it on VOD.
Yeah. Well, not just people being entertained, but theaters needing to make some sort of profit during these very weird times.
Yeah. I mean, studios need to make money too. I mean, God, the studios need to make money. And if they have nothing coming out and they don't have like lineups, how are they going to make money to bring people back to work later if they don't have any of the profit? And I mean, when you look at theme parks also, and I hate to tie this into this, but like Universal's associated with theme parks. So like they're not, before you can say that they can get some revenue from that. Disney is losing so much money with the whole summer probably going to be like off the table of all that money they would get, all those hotels, everything is shut down. Like, how do people realistically expect these studios to bring people back and give them jobs if there's no content out there and they're not making any money at all from what the product they have? It's a worst case scenario kind of situation right now. Like you kind of have to, even though something you may not want to put it out there, you might have to put it out there just to get the revenue in. And then that's why I said you have to do testing. Like once this is all over, whenever the hell that's going to be, you have to do testing, side-by-side comparison. Because you don't know what it's going to be. And I think it's just, I feel like people have either taken one side or the other with the conversation. And I think we had a really well-rounded argument about like, you kind of have to look at both sides of the spectrum on this.
Yeah.
Neither party's right in this, but neither party's wrong. One person's just trying to save the theaters. The other one, is just saying like, hey, we need to make money. Yeah. So they're both businesses. They're basically saying the exact same thing, right? Like Universal's like, we need to make money. Theaters like, we need to make money too. How are we going to solve this problem? So I don't know. Any closing remarks on this before we go? I thought that was a pretty good conversation.
That was a great conversation.
I was going to say, I think it's going to be much easier to get back into reopening theaters than it would with theme parks because you could definitely maintain like some rules in place for movie theaters and they wouldn't be like you could space seats out. It's not going to be as big a problem as reopening Universal, which is going to.
They've got the queue lines and everything with that. They have to worry about.
Yeah, I don't even want to imagine how that's going to work out.
You don't.
No.
Well, and then I mean, God, just think about this, right? So I read this article. Like, I don't know if you guys read this. All I do is read all the time now. All I do is read articles about how this is going to work, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to open Disneyland at half capacity, right? They're going to let 50% less people in. That's the game plan. Yet they're going to have double the staff. People do realize that, right? Because like they're going to have to make sure that people are standing where they're supposed to be standing.
Yep.
And like they're not too close and that they're following rules and people aren't cutting all this fun stuff that people do anyhow at amusement parks, but there's going to be amplified even more. So
just imagine the character interactions too, though.
Oh my God. But how the hell, how are they going to afford that? You're going to open a park. You're going to run on half the budget, even though you have more people. So does that mean the people who are working at the park are going to have to take a pay cut? Because like, how are you going to employ that if you're not making nearly as much money? Because again, that's the bottom line, right? It's money. Like we wouldn't have any conversation about any of this stuff if it wasn't for the money aspect. Are you going to want to go into the Main Street store and pick up that shirt that someone else just picked up for a while there? No. So
No.
You're going to bring your hand like they're going to have hand sanitizers all over the park. Can you imagine how much that's going to cost to refill that on a day with how many people come in there?
Hand washing stations, I've heard.
Hand washing stations. I mean, just the cost of that stuff alone to open at 50% capacity, half the profit. Just look at it that way, half the money.
Yeah.
I don't understand how it's going to work. I really like. I know it's going to have to work eventually. Mm-hmm. But like, I can't wrap my mind around it because it makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's got to be a loss. And they're already lost. They're already losing for like what, 2 months now. Right now, it looks like if we're lucky, something will happen in May, which I don't think until June.
What, for the parks?
Yeah.
Oh, no, they're not going to open probably until I would say the ones on the West Coast won't open until 2021. Florida is a whole different situation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's true.
Just from what I've been reading, it looks like, I mean, if you can't have like concerts and large gatherings, there's no way a theme park is going to open before 2021.
No. It's fascinating because I just don't know, and I just did this. I want to have this conversation just because I wanted to hear everyone's thoughts on it. Just be part of the conversation. Just be part of the conversation. All right. So as we end this show, let's do something that I haven't done on this show, but let's all go around and give one quick recommendation. Just tell someone like in a minute. A TV show, a movie, something on streaming that they should check out. Michael, we'll start with you.
Cowboy Bebop. I've been rewatching that. It's an anime. It's an animation of like space age, Western, and jazz music all mixed together, and it works out perfectly. So if you love any of those genres, you might check that out.
All right, awesome. How about you, Alexander?
I'm going with Community. I think it's one of the most underappreciated sitcoms that NBC's aired. It's on Netflix, so you have no excuse. And if you make it through season 4, keep your eyes open for a cameo or background appearance by yours truly.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I'm in 2 episodes of season 4 in the background.
Awesome.
Oh, that's awesome.
All right, Shannon, how about you?
Well, I just started watching Community, and I also have a lot of opinions on that, but that's for another time. I actually just found out that Sinister is on Netflix, and I'm so excited because it is terrifying. Directed by Scott Derrickson. It's just terrifying. And if you're looking for something really scary, that'll probably traumatize you in a different way than what's happening in the world, I highly suggest it.
Okay. And for me, just going to give a quick shout out to Hollywood, which started streaming yesterday. Really enjoyed this reimagining of what the studio system should have been like in the 30s and 40s. I will preface this by saying that there is a lot of homosexuality in this show, and it is at times kind of graphic. So I know that there's people still, as much as there shouldn't be, there are still people who are like bothered by that kind of stuff. So you should know that going into it. But there are so many points, and I said that this, you know, like I think last year I called like Bombshell like the quintessential like Me Too movie. This is like the quintessential like Me Too times up like everything. This just like pretty much encompasses everything that has been wrong with the industry since like the 30s and 40s until the last couple of years, and really just hits all those topics head on. And it's really powerful. Especially when you get into like the third episode on, I feel like it's really, really strong. So I highly recommend checking out this show if you have a chance. All right. So that's it for this episode. Thank you everyone for joining me. Sorry we ran a little over in time, but we had fun, and thanks everyone for watching. So take care.
Thank you for having us.
All right.
Take care, everyone. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.